It's 11 p.m. You're in bed, and your brain just pulled up something you said 3 days ago. That pause after, the look on their face, you rewind it, play it again, analyze every word. It's been 3 days. You're still in it. This isn't just overthinking. It's something more specific than that. You're not simply wondering if you said the right thing. You're running a full investigation on a conversation that is already over, scanning every word for evidence that you came across wrong, looking for proof that you failed in a moment most other people forgot 5 minutes after it happened. This is conversational replay, and it's not the same as just being anxious. You're running forensics on social performance, looking for the moment it went wrong. This pattern has a very specific mechanism. Once you see how it works, why it won't stop will make complete sense. You might recognize this in other places too. You send a text, a simple, normal message. The second you hit send, it starts. Did that sound too casual? Too cold? Should you have added a question so it didn't feel like a dead end? You stare at the message, read it again. Now it sounds weird to you. You wait for the reply, and the waiting feels like evidence of something. Or you're in a group conversation. Someone asks a question, and you respond. Everyone moves on, but you don't. You're still back on what you said. Was it too much? Not enough? Did you talk over someone? Or are you too quiet? The group moves forward. You stay behind, running the audit. Or maybe it's smaller than that. Someone ends a conversation with just, okay, 3 letters, and something about it sits wrong. You turn it over. Was it cold? Dismissive? You go back and reread the whole exchange, trying to figure out where it shifted. You find nothing, so you read it again. This probably sounds familiar, and there's a reason this keeps happening. It's not the reason you think. Here's what's actually happening underneath all of this. Your brain is running a threat detection system, not for physical danger, for social danger. Every interaction you have gets scanned. Your brain is looking for signs that you came across wrong, that you damaged something, that someone now thinks less of you. The scan finds uncertainty, a pause that lasted a beat too long, a reply that felt slightly off, a silence that could mean anything. And here's where it gets interesting. Uncertainty feels like evidence, not like a blank space, like a warning sign. So you go back into the conversation looking for proof, one way or the other. You replay it. You look for the moment it went wrong. Or you look for reassurance that it didn't. But the replay never gives you what you're looking for. It just generates more material to analyze. More questions, more uncertainty, more reasons to keep scanning. Watch what happens. You replay the conversation. The replay creates new things to notice. Those new things feel suspicious. So you replay it again. Now you're 3 loops deep into a conversation that lasted 4 minutes, and you're no closer to an answer than when you started. Here's the part that makes this so hard to escape. The thing you're doing to feel better is the thing that keeps you stuck. You replay conversations to feel the discomfort, to land somewhere certain, but the replay never resolves it. It just extends it. Every time you run through it again, you find something new to question, which means you need to run through it again, which means you find something else. The loop feeds itself. It's less searching for an answer, more searching for a feeling. The feeling that you're safe, that you didn't mess it up, that they don't think badly of you. And the replay promises that feeling without ever delivering it. So you keep going back. The longer you stay in the loop, the more exhausted and uncertain you feel. Not more resolved, more raw. This didn't appear from nowhere. It came from somewhere specific. And once you see where, the whole thing stops feeling like a flaw and starts feeling like something else entirely. This probably started somewhere that required you to be careful. Maybe it wasn't dramatic at all. Maybe it was just a place where approval felt inconsistent, where you could say the same thing twice and get 2 completely different reactions, where you learned early that reading the room wasn't optional. It was how you stayed okay. So you started analyzing, trying to understand the pattern, trying to get it right. Maybe it was school, where one wrong thing said in front of the wrong people had social consequences that lasted weeks, where you learned that what you said could define how people saw you. So you started editing yourself before you even spoke. Maybe it was home, where the mood in a room could shift based on how you said something, where you read faces the way other kids read books, constantly, automatically, looking for what was coming next. At that point, replaying conversations wasn't a problem, it was data collection. You were trying to understand how to stay safe in a world that felt unpredictable. The replay gave you something to work with, something to learn from. It made sense. It kept you safe. It worked. It worked so well that your brain made it automatic. You didn't decide to keep doing it. You didn't choose to carry it forward. Your brain saw that the monitoring kept you from social harm, or at least felt like it did, and it held on. It built this into your default way of moving through interactions. And now it runs in places where you don't need it anymore. You're having coffee with a friend who genuinely likes you, and the system still runs. You're talking to a colleague who isn't tracking your every word, and it still scans. You're texting someone who reads your messages warmly, and the replay still starts the second you hit send. The threat it was built for has mostly passed, but the system doesn't know that. It was never told, so it keeps running. In every conversation, on every exchange, with people who aren't scanning you for mistakes. You're still running a protection system for a threat that mostly doesn't exist anymore. And that has a cost. Here's what it actually asks of you. Every time you replay a conversation, you leave the present moment. You're physically in Thursday, but you're mentally in Monday's lunch, which means you miss what's actually in front of you right now. The conversation happening in real time. The person right there. The moment that's available. The replay takes up the space where presence could live. And there's something else it asks. Every time you monitor yourself during an interaction, you split your attention. Part of you is in the conversation, part of you is watching yourself in the conversation, evaluating, editing, checking, which means you're never fully in it. You're always partly behind the glass, observing yourself, running the analysis while it's still happening. Connection requires presence, and the monitoring keeps pulling you back to the observation deck. And the longer this runs, the more it shapes what you trust. You start to trust your analysis more than the actual interaction. You believe your replay version of how you came across more than how people actually respond to you. Someone tells you it was a great conversation. You think they're just being polite. Someone laughs at your joke. You think, but did that laugh sound real? The evidence right in front of you stops landing because the replay has already written a different story, which makes the uncertainty grow, which makes you need to check more, which makes the replay run longer and more often. The loop tightens over time, not because you're doing something wrong, but because the system is doing exactly what it was built to do. But here's what that system never accounted for. The part of you that can just have a conversation and let it end is still there. It hasn't been removed, it hasn't been broken, it's just been quieter than the monitoring. The replay got loud and the presence got crowded out. But the ability to be in an interaction without scanning it, without filming it for later review, that's still in you. It's been there the whole time. You haven't lost the ability to just talk to someone and move on. The system just got louder than the moment. You don't need to fix this today. You don't need to stop the replay by force or talk yourself out of the loop every time it starts. You just need to see it. Notice when the replay begins. Notice when you're 3 days back in a conversation that's already over. Notice the scan starts mid-interaction, pulling part of you out of the room. You don't have to stop it. Just see it. Name it quietly. The replay is running again. And then come back to now. That is enough. When something is seen clearly, it begins to loosen on its own. You don't have to push it, just watch it. This pattern made sense when it started. It was built in a place that needed it. It protected you from real things. It kept you from real harm. It still runs because it worked so well. But the part of you that can sit in a conversation without scanning, without replaying, without waiting for evidence that you're okay, That part is still here. It never left. Whenever you're ready to keep observing, you know where to find the space.